The city stretched out before Mark. A vast expanse of towering buildings, glowing lights, and a hum of alien technology that felt like a constant pulse in the air. He had never seen anything like it. The planet's surface was a strange mix of beauty and danger, with landscapes that could kill if you weren't careful. But this was where the mission had brought him. To a world filled with creatures unlike any humans had ever encountered. Mark, a human peacekeeper, was part of a delegation sent to this new alien world to establish friendly relations. For months, Earth had been working with the Council of Star Systems, hoping to find allies in the vast galaxy. Mark was one of the first humans to step foot on the alien planet, and his job was to meet with the leaders of the alien species here, an alien race known as the Xyriths. The Xyriths were a proud and fierce species, known for their strength and advanced technology. But despite their impressive abilities, they had always kept to themselves, wary of outsiders. The council had arranged a meeting between Mark and one of their most important figures, Zethra, a high-ranking Xyrith official. Mark stood in front of the Grand Palace where Zethra resided, adjusting his uniform and running a hand through his dark hair. He had read all the reports and watched the training videos. He knew the Xyriths were proud and didn't easily trust humans. But Mark was determined to prove that Earth was ready for peaceful cooperation. The palace doors opened, and Mark stepped inside. The atmosphere inside was cool, the walls shimmering with strange symbols and glowing lights that seemed to move. Zethra was waiting for him, standing at the far end of a long hall. She was tall, her skin a deep shade of blue that shimmered slightly under the lights. Her eyes, glowing white, watched him with a mixture of curiosity and suspicion. "Human," Zethra's voice rang out, calm but sharp. Mark straightened up, trying to make a good first impression. "I apologize, Zethra. The journey here was longer than expected." Zethra studied him for a moment, her expression unreadable. "You are human," she said. "I expected you to be shorter, weaker." Mark smiled, trying to keep the mood light. "We're not all the same. Some of us are stronger than others." Zethra raised an eyebrow. "We shall see." The meeting began with formalities, but Mark could sense the tension in the room. Zethra wasn't interested in pleasantries, and every word she spoke was filled with an edge of distrust. Mark tried to stay calm, knowing that his mission depended on winning her over. He explained the purpose of the peace mission, talking about how humans could share knowledge and technology to benefit both species. But Zethra seemed uninterested in his words. She had heard it all before. She had no reason to believe that humans were anything but a threat. After what felt like hours, Mark knew he had to do something different. He had to prove to Zethra that humans weren't just talk. He had to show her that they had something valuable to offer. "I have something," Mark said, pulling a small device from his pocket. "It's a gift. Something that could help you and your people." Zethra looked at the device with suspicion. "What is it?" Mark held it out. "It's a nerve regulator. It enhances physical endurance and focus. It could help your people in battle, in times of stress, or even in everyday tasks. It's something we've developed on Earth." Zethra took a step back, clearly not impressed. "And why would I accept a gift from you, human? Your kind is known for deception." Mark's heart raced. This wasn't going as he had hoped, but he wasn't ready to give up yet. "I understand your distrust," he said, his voice calm. "But think about it. Your people are powerful, but every species can benefit from new tools, new technology. This device can help you." Zethra's glowing eyes narrowed as she considered his words. "And you expect me to believe that this device will not harm us?" Mark nodded, his tone sincere. "It's completely safe. It's designed to enhance your abilities, not to harm you. I promise you, Zethra. It's worth trying." There was a long silence. Zethra's gaze shifted from Mark to the device in his hand. It was small, sleek, with a glowing blue core that pulsed faintly. She was clearly intrigued. but she wasn't ready to admit it. Still, her curiosity got the better of her. "I will try it," Zethra said finally, but her voice held an edge. "But know this, human. If this proves to be some trick, there will be consequences." Mark nodded, relieved that she had agreed. "I understand." Zethra stepped forward, taking the device from his hand. She held it in her fingers, examining it closely before pressing a small button on the side. A faint hum filled the air, and Mark watched as Zethra hesitated for a moment before placing the device against her neck. He held his breath, wondering what would happen next. For a few seconds, nothing seemed to happen. Zethra stood there, her posture stiff, her expression unchanged. But then, Mark noticed something, a subtle shift in her eyes, a slight twitch in her fingers. He could see the tension in her shoulders ease, and the glow in her eyes seemed to intensify. She tilted her head slightly, almost as if she were listening to something. At first, Zethra didn't react, but then her expression changed. Her body tensed, her eyes widening in disbelief. "What is this?" she asked, her voice soft, but filled with a hint of panic. "It is overwhelming." Mark stepped forward. "What do you mean? Is something wrong?" Zethra's hand flew up to her head, clutching at her temples. I can't control it," she said, her voice strained. "Whatever you've done, it's taking over my nerves. I can feel every sensation. It's too much. I can't stay standing." Mark's heart raced. This wasn't supposed to happen. He had tested the device countless times, and it was supposed to enhance performance, not cause harm. But as Zethra stumbled back, her legs shaking, he realized he had made a mistake. The device was interacting with her alien biology in ways he didn't understand. "Zethra, please. I'll turn it off. Just let me." But Zethra's breath was coming in short, sharp gasps. She reached out for a nearby pillar to steady herself. I can't. It's like every nerve in my body is on fire. I can't." Her voice faltered as she collapsed to her knees, her body trembling. Mark rushed to her side, his hands hovering uncertainly. "Zethra, I didn't mean for this to happen." But she didn't answer him. She was staring straight ahead, her expression lost in a wave of sensations that she couldn't control. It was clear now that the device had affected her far more than anyone could have predicted. Mark's heart pounded as he knelt beside Zethra, watching helplessly as she struggled to maintain control. Her body shook uncontrollably, her hands gripping the cold stone pillar for support. The faint hum of the device still echoed in the room, but all Mark could hear now was the sound of Zethra's ragged breathing. "Zethra, I didn't mean for this to happen," Mark said urgently, his voice thick with concern. He reached out to steady her, but she pulled away from him, her eyes wild with fear and frustration. You did this," she managed to say between shallow breaths, her voice strained. "Whatever you've done, it's too much. I can feel everything. It's overwhelming." Mark stood back, confusion and guilt warring inside him. The device was supposed to enhance her physical abilities, not cause pain. He had designed it to help, to give her an edge in battle or stressful situations. But now, it seemed to be doing the exact opposite. Zethra was losing control, and he had no idea how to fix it. I can't stop it," Zethra whispered, her voice barely audible as she struggled to stay upright. "I feel like my whole body is alive, every nerve, every movement feels too strong. It's like I'm not even in control anymore." And Mark's mind raced. He had read all the manuals, studied the technology carefully, but nothing had prepared him for this. The device was based on advanced Earth technology, meant to enhance endurance and focus by regulating nerve impulses. But Zethra's alien biology was so different from humans, and the technology had interacted with her system in ways he had never imagined. He needed to act quickly, before things got worse. But the question was, how? Zethra, listen to me, Mark said, trying to calm her. I can help you. I'll turn it off. I just need to find the controls. Sid. No! Zethra cut him off, her voice harsh. You can't just turn it off. It's in my system now. It's not just a device anymore. It's part of me. She trembled as she spoke, her eyes wide with panic. Mark could see that she was right. The device was no longer just a tool. It had become a part of her, affecting her nerves in ways that no one could have predicted. She wasn't just feeling its effects. It had become something far more powerful, something beyond his control. I didn't mean for this, Mark repeated, his voice barely a whisper. He knelt down in front of her, trying to meet her gaze, but Zethra's eyes were unfocused, distant. Please, tell me what you're feeling. I need to understand so I can help. Zethra's breath came in shallow, uneven gasps as she tried to speak. Every touch, every sound. It's magnified. I can feel the pulse of the air, the vibrations in the ground. It's all so intense. I don't know how much longer I can stand it. It's like everything is happening at once. Mark's chest tightened. He had to find a solution, but he was running out of time. Zethra was barely holding on, and if he didn't act soon, things could escalate beyond repair. He stood up quickly, glancing around the room for anything that might help. The technology here was advanced, but it was also unfamiliar. Mark had to think fast, and he had to do it alone. I'll figure this out, Mark said, more to himself than to Zethra. I can fix this. Just stay with me. Don't give up. Zethra's eyes flickered to him, the hint of anger still there, though it was mixed with fear and exhaustion. I'm not giving up, she whispered, but you have to fix this, or I don't know what's going to happen. Mark nodded, determination flooding his mind. He had faced difficult situations before, but nothing like this. He needed to calm Zethra's nerves, to stabilize her, but the device was far more complex than he had realized. His mind raced, searching for a solution, but everything felt like it was slipping through his fingers. Zethra was still holding onto the pillar, her body trembling, her eyes darting around the room as if she could sense every movement in the air. She was clearly fighting to stay conscious, but the strain was too much. Mark could see her beginning to fade, her strength draining with each passing second. Without thinking, he reached into his bag and pulled out a small tablet. He powered it on and quickly began typing, trying to access the device's control interface. The screen flickered to life, and Mark's eyes scanned the lines of code. It was complicated, but he was a skilled technician, and he wasn't about to give up. Meanwhile, Zethra was struggling to stay upright, her hands gripping the pillar tighter as her body shuddered. I can't, she gasped. I can't hold on much longer. It's too much. Mark's hands moved faster over the tablet. He could see the system was still active, but the feedback from Zethra's nervous system was overwhelming the device's parameters. If he didn't act soon, he feared the device would cause permanent damage. Just a little longer, Mark muttered under his breath, his fingers flying over the screen. The tablet beeped, confirming that he had found the override settings. He selected the option to reset the device's output to its default settings, hoping it would reduce the overwhelming sensations Zethra was experiencing. But when he pressed the button, nothing happened. The device was still humming, and Zethra was still shaking, barely able to stand. Her knees buckled, and she fell to the floor, gasping for air. Zethra! Mark shouted, rushing to her side. He could see the strain on her face, the fear in her eyes. She was on the edge, and he wasn't sure how much longer she could hold on. I'm sorry, Mark said, his voice filled with guilt. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. Please, just stay with me. Zethra's eyes flickered, and she let out a soft moan. "I'm trying," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "But it's too much. I can't control it." Mark was running out of options. His mind was racing, but he couldn't think of anything that would immediately stop the device's effects. Desperation began to set in as he watched Zethra's body convulse, her hands trembling as she reached out for him. Her voice was barely a whisper, almost lost in the hum of the device. "I don't know how much longer I can stay standing," she gasped. Mark's eyes widened with panic. The device was still pulsing, feeding into her nerves, amplifying every sensation until Zethra was no longer in control of her body. He knew he had to act fast, but he felt helpless. Then, something shifted. As Zethra's body trembled, she took a slow, deliberate breath. Mark watched in awe as she focused on her breathing, her hands gripping the floor beneath her. Slowly, the intensity of her shaking began to lessen. It was still there, the overwhelming sensation. But Zethra was gaining a little control. Mark knew it wasn't enough, she wasn't out of danger yet, but it was something. I can control it," Zethra said, her voice quiet but steady. "But it's going to take time. I need to focus. Please, help me." Mark nodded, relief flooding him. But even as he spoke, he knew that the real challenge was just beginning. Zethra had survived the initial shock of the device, but it was clear that the effects weren't going to wear off easily. Mark had to find a way to stabilize her completely, and he had to do it before it was too late. Zethra's breathing had steadied, but the look in her eyes still betrayed the battle she was fighting. Her body was no longer shaking uncontrollably, but the strain was still visible on her face. She was holding herself up with her hands, her fingers pressed hard against the cold floor. The nerve device had overwhelmed her, but now, she was slowly regaining control. It was a small victory, but it wasn't enough. The full effects of the device still lingered, and Mark knew they had to find a permanent solution. Mark stood back, watching Zethra carefully. His mind was racing. The device had been designed to enhance nerve function, not to overwhelm a person. But Zethra's alien physiology had reacted in ways he hadn't anticipated. He had to think fast. The mission depended on this working. If he couldn't help Zethra regain full control, the peace talks would be over before they even started. Zethra's glowing eyes flicked up to him, and Mark saw the spark of determination in them. She was still in pain, still struggling, but she wasn't giving up. Her resilience impressed him. Despite the terrifying experience she was going through, she refused to let it break her. "Are you okay?" Mark asked, trying to keep his voice calm. Zethra nodded slowly, though her expression remained tense. "I'm holding on. But this is not normal. This sensation. It's too strong. Too much." Mark bit his lip, looking down at the tablet in his hands. It wasn't just a simple fix. He had to reverse the process, reduce the nerve sensitivity, and figure out why Zethra's body had reacted so intensely. The device had been calibrated to enhance physical and mental performance. It was supposed to make her stronger, faster, more focused, not drive her to the edge of collapse. The code had been tested on humans, and there had been no issues. But Zethra wasn't human. Mark thought back to the reports on the Xyrith species he'd studied before the mission. They were stronger than humans, built for endurance. Their bodies were adapted for extreme conditions, heat, cold, pressure, things humans couldn't handle. But they also had highly sensitive nervous systems, making them vulnerable to overstimulation. Mark had seen some of this in the lab data, but he hadn't fully understood the impact it would have on Zethra. He needed more information, more data. There was no way he could solve this without knowing more about her biology. But he didn't have time for deep analysis. Every second that passed, the device was affecting her more. Mark needed a way to reverse the effects immediately. "Zethra, I need you to listen to me carefully," Mark said, his voice serious. The device is interacting with your body in ways it shouldn't. Your nerves are reacting to it because your physiology is different. I don't know why it's affecting you this way, but I'm going to fix it. Zethra raised an eyebrow, clearly not convinced. Fix it? You've already done enough damage, human. This is beyond your understanding. Mark's chest tightened, but he refused to back down. I can't undo what happened, but I can help you regain control. I just need you to trust me for a moment. Zethra didn't answer at first. Her hand was still pressed against the floor, her knuckles white with tension. Then, after a long pause, she spoke again. I'm listening. But be quick. I don't know how much longer I can endure this. Mark took a deep breath, then opened the tablet's interface once more. He needed to adjust the device's frequency, but he couldn't do it without accessing the system manually. His fingers flew over the screen, accessing the settings he needed. The moment he started to change the parameters, Zethra flinched, her body tensing up again. Zethra, stay with me, Mark said urgently, reaching out to her. You have to focus. Don't let the sensation control you. Zethra's eyes met his, and for the first time, she nodded. She was listening, really listening. Mark's heart sped up as he made the adjustments, each one a delicate balance between risk and reward. The last thing he wanted was to make things worse. He couldn't afford to mess this up, but as he changed the settings, something strange happened. Zethra's body jerked again, more violently this time. Her hand left the floor, and she staggered back, clutching at her head. No, Zethra cried out, her voice a mix of frustration and pain. What are you doing? Stop! Mark immediately halted, panic rising in his chest. Zethra, I'm trying to fix it. I'm changing the frequency. You have to trust me. But Zethra was already backing away, her glowing eyes wide with terror. It's getting worse. I can feel it. It's burning through my veins. Mark's mind raced. He had no choice. If he didn't act fast, Zethra might lose control completely. He quickly tapped the tablet again, shifting the device's output in the opposite direction, trying to bring the frequency down. For a few agonizing seconds, nothing happened. Then, slowly, Zethra's body began to relax, her shoulders dropping, as if the weight of the world had lifted from them. Her breathing slowed, and the tremors in her hands eased. She took a shaky step forward, then another. Is it better? Mark asked, his voice soft, cautious. Zethra didn't answer immediately. She closed her eyes for a moment, as though she were gathering her strength. Then, she opened her eyes and nodded once. Yes. It's better. The burning is gone. I feel calmer. Mark let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. The device had caused so much damage already, and he wasn't sure if it was truly over. Good. I'm going to keep adjusting the settings to stabilize things, Mark said, his fingers returning to the tablet. I'll get you back to normal, Zethra. I promise. Zethra was still standing, her posture more relaxed now, but her eyes were wary. Mark didn't answer. He was focused entirely on the task at hand. The device had caused a severe reaction, but Zethra was right. She had no other option but to trust him, for now. If he failed, there was no telling what would happen to her. The next few minutes were a blur. Mark continued to tweak the settings, adjusting the output, until Zethra seemed to regain full control over her body. The sensation that had overwhelmed her was now under control, but Mark could still see the lingering exhaustion in her eyes. This hadn't been easy for her, and it wasn't over yet. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Mark looked up at Zethra. How are you feeling now? Zethra took a deep breath, then exhaled slowly. Her hands, once trembling, were now steady at her sides. I feel like myself again. The sensation is gone. For now, Mark nodded, though his worry didn't fade. We'll keep monitoring it. The device is still in your system, but it should be stable now. Zethra gave him a long, searching look, then stepped back. I'll never trust you fully, human. But I will admit this. You didn't give up. You fixed it. Mark wasn't sure if that was praise, but he took it as a sign that he had made some progress. The tension between them had lessened. But there was still a long way to go before the peace talks would be successful. We're not done yet, Mark said, his tone resolute. But this is a start. Zethra didn't answer, but the faintest flicker of respect crossed her face. It was a small victory, but it was enough for now. The real challenge, however, was still ahead, proving that humans and Xyriths could work together. The silence in the room was almost overwhelming. Zethra stood across from Mark, her eyes still glowing faintly, but no longer filled with the same panic and confusion. The burning sensation that had once coursed through her body was now a distant memory, but the memory of her struggle lingered in her mind, as well as the deep sense of betrayal. She had trusted Mark, at least a little, and it had cost her more than she had expected. Mark, on the other hand, was still trying to regain his composure. His hands were shaking slightly as he placed the tablet back into his bag. He had just managed to stabilize the device's effects, but there was still a sense of unease between them. The peace mission was far from over, and now he had a bigger task at hand, earning Zethra's trust. Zethra stepped forward slowly, her movements deliberate. Her once tense posture had relaxed, though there was still a wariness in the way she looked at him. You said you would fix it, she said, her voice firm but not unkind. And you did. For now. Mark nodded, his eyes meeting hers. I'm glad you're feeling better, he said, his tone genuine. But there's more work to do. I won't leave you until you're fully stable. I owe you that much. Zethra tilted her head slightly, studying him. You humans are strange. You have no idea what it's like to have everything you know turned upside down. I've never felt anything like that before. It was as though I was losing control of my own body. Mark took a deep breath, understanding the depth of her frustration. I can't imagine what that must have been like for you. I'm sorry. That wasn't how it was supposed to work. Zethra's gaze softened just a little. No, it wasn't. But you're here now. And you fixed it. You didn't give up when things got hard. That's something I can respect. Well, au revoir. Mark felt a small weight lift off his chest. She wasn't completely forgiving him yet, but she wasn't completely rejecting him either. It was a start, and in this new world, where the future of both human and Xyrith cooperation rested on their shoulders, even a small start was something worth holding on to. I'm not going anywhere, Mark said firmly. But I do need your help with something. I need to know more about your biology, your physiology. The device reacted in ways I didn't expect, and I don't want to make the same mistake again. Zethra stared at him for a moment, her expression unreadable. Then she nodded once. I will help you. But only if you understand that my people are not your test subjects. We are not to be experimented on. This device was meant to enhance our abilities, not break us. Mark swallowed hard. He could hear the weight of her words, the warning in her voice. He had been walking a fine line between cooperation and disaster, and he needed to tread carefully. I understand, and I promise you, I'll do everything I can to make sure this doesn't happen again. We're in this together now. Zethra didn't respond immediately. Instead, she moved over to a nearby table and picked up a small vial of something Mark didn't recognize. This, she said, holding it up for him to see, is a sample of my blood. It's the key to understanding my species' unique physiology. You'll need this if you want to calibrate the device to interact properly with my system. Mark took the vial from her, his mind working quickly. This was exactly what he needed. With this sample, he could study the differences between their biology and human biology, and perhaps create a version of the device that was safer for Zethra and her people. "Thank you," Mark said, feeling a new sense of determination rise within him. "I promise I won't let you down." Zethra's eyes softened slightly as she handed over the vial. "I hope you keep that promise, human. My people are watching, and if this goes wrong again, I will not hesitate to take action." Mark nodded, feeling the weight of her words settle on his shoulders. "I won't fail you." The two of them stood in silence for a few moments, the weight of their conversation lingering between them. Zethra was no longer angry, but the trust she had placed in him was still fragile. Mark knew that he had a long road ahead of him if he wanted to earn her full trust. But this was a start. Zethra broke the silence first. "You've done what you can for now. We'll give the device time to settle in. It will take time for my body to adjust fully. But we can begin to move forward." 1. Mark nodded, relieved that things were calming down. "I agree. We can keep monitoring your condition, and I'll continue to work on improving the device." Zethra raised an eyebrow. "I still don't know if I trust this device fully. But I trust you more than I did before. That's something." Mark smiled, the first real smile he had felt since the incident started. "I'll take that as a win." As the minutes passed, they continued discussing their next steps. Mark shared what he had learned about human technology and how they could work together. Zethra listened intently, occasionally asking questions about Earth's technologies. She still kept a distance, but there was a shift in her attitude. She was no longer seeing him as a threat. And that was progress. Finally, after what felt like hours, Zethra stood up. "I think it's time we return to the others. The mission isn't over yet, and we both have a role to play in it." Mark agreed, standing up as well. "We'll take it one step at a time, together." As they walked towards the door, the tension between them had dissipated somewhat, though it still lingered in the background. There was no denying that things had changed, but how much they had changed would depend on what happened next. Outside the room, the bustling sounds of the Zyrith city echoed through the corridors. The peace mission was far from over, and the challenges they faced would only grow. But Mark felt a renewed sense of purpose. This wasn't just about technology or diplomacy anymore. It was about trust, building it, earning it, and learning to work together despite differences. They stepped into the hallway, and Zethra glanced at Mark. "This isn't over," she said softly, her eyes meeting his. Mark smiled, though he knew she was right. "No, it's just the beginning." The two of them walked side by side, heading towards the future that neither of them could have predicted. The path ahead was uncertain, but for the first time since landing on this strange alien world, Mark felt a small glimmer of hope. They had come through this challenge, and that was something to hold on to. As they made their way through the city, the stars above seemed a little brighter. There was still a long way to go before true peace could be achieved, but Mark was determined to do whatever it took to bridge the gap between his people and Zethra's. They had both learned something valuable that day. No matter how different they were, they could work together. And that, Mark thought, was the first step toward a lasting alliance.